Welcome to Secrets of a Seven-Figure Coach, the podcast for coaches, consultants, and creative entrepreneurs who want to hit between $100K and $1 million in annual revenue. I'm Beck Keane, your host and business mentor. On this podcast, I'm sharing the mindset, strategy, and energetics required to create a multi-six-figure business and beyond. Before becoming a coach, I grew 3 successful businesses. I'm an award-winning business owner who built and exited $1 million consulting firm and an industry-leading app that won awards back in 2016. And that all happened before I started my own coaching business, which has since generated over $2 million in lifetime revenue in part-time hours. I'm taking you behind the scenes from my very first 10K month to my very first 100K month. I'll also bring in coaches and consultants who have scaled their own coaching businesses so you can learn real-world tools and strategies from others who have walked the path. If you are a coach, consultant, or creative entrepreneur looking to 2 to 4x your revenue while also having an incredibly rich personal life, this podcast is for you. Hello, and welcome to today's podcast. I am super excited to share this episode with you because this is a process that I use again and again and again. This can be applied to any and all areas of your life, whether you're an entrepreneur, a coach, a consultant, a parent. This simple, let's call it a mindset hack or a brain hack, can be used to attract, magnetize, receive, enhance whatever it is you want more of. So as you're listening to today's episode, I want you to really tune in to what it is you desire to create more of in your life. Perhaps it's more money. Maybe it's more clients. Maybe it's more love. Maybe it's more joy, more freedom, more time. Any and all of those things. I want you to really think about what it is you would like to see and create more of in your life. And then using this really simple hack that I'm going to teach you today, you can use that and apply it across the board. And look, whether you want to believe that this is going to work or not, it legitimately doesn't matter to me whether you believe it will work or not. What I would say is test it out, try it out, and see if it helps you. And I mean, don't just try it out once, try it out a few times. See if it helps you create more of that thing. And the other thing I'll say about this process is that it actually feels really, really good. Like in your body, in your bones. This is one of the ways that I feel like I am in this expansive growth state most of the time versus a state of contraction, scarcity, lack, which seems to be really rampant in today's world. And it can actually come up in all kinds of sneaky little ways. And so this process is something that I use on the daily in my personal life, in my business life, really like across all aspects and areas of my life. And it helps us place our attention on the very thing that we say we want more of. And so what I see with the thousands of people that I have coached over the last 7-8 years is that people often say, well, I want more clients, or I want more money, or I want to find a partner. And then they go into this long list of reasons why they can't have that thing. Or they tell me all the ways something isn't working. I mean, the most classic example of this is when people come to me looking to create more clients. They have a launch, a group program, or something that they want to put out into the world, or maybe they've already put it out into the world. They've launched an offer, for example, a group coaching offer. And as they're telling me about how amazing this offer is, then they say something like, but only one person signed up, or, but no one has messaged me about it, or I only have whatever the thing is. Like they immediately suck all the energy, not just out of the conversation, but out of themselves because they are focusing on exactly what's not working. And they talk about everything that's not working in the launch, in their business, in their personal life, whatever it is. And what this does is it really signals to our brain that something is a failure, that something's not working. And then the brain seeks to find reasons to justify that very negative outcome. And what we know about the brain is that what we place our energy, our attention, our focus on is that is what the brain will attempt to create more of. And so when we focus on the lack of something, when we focus on, you know, a low number or a negative outcome, you're actually signaling to the brain that that's what you want. Now, I know, and you know that that's not actually what you want, and that you're talking about this and you're sharing, a low launch or something like that because you want the opposite. But that's the hack is that if you want the opposite and you want more, then you actually need to train your brain to focus on the more that you have. And so what this means and what this looks like in this specific example is you would want to focus on what is working. And if, let's say, one person signed up for your group coaching program, you would want to place so much focus, celebration, joy, energy on the one person who signed up. And you would want to look at what is working with that. How did that person come into your world? And then you go and you recreate those steps. Now, this isn't to say that you, especially if we're talking about launches, which I really don't want to talk about launches for this entire podcast. I really want to talk about, how to use this process in so many different areas of your life. But because I use that example, let's just break that down for a second. Is that yes, with launches and with your business for sure, and even your life, your personal life, you should take stock of what's not working. You should examine and you should look at like what didn't work, what felt like a failure, what seemed like a failure, and then what do you want to change from there. But what I see is that people go into this negativity bias where they're completely focused on the lack of clients, the lack of messages on Instagram, the lack of money in their bank account, when if you want more of something, you need to be focused on what is there, on what you do have, and what is working, and what did work, and also what you do desire, right? So like I'll give you another example. When I'm wanting to create more, let's say, abundance in my life, and I see abundance as like in not just about money, right? Abundance is about time, it's about freedom, it's about expansion, it's about so many different things. And so if I want abundance, I am going to look for signs of where abundance is already in my life. And maybe I'm going through a phase where money doesn't feel like it's in abundance. What I'm not going to do is I'm not going to focus on that feeling and those thoughts and beliefs and those pathways that money is not there. Because I know as a seasoned coach and, having studied how our brain works, if I focus on that, I'm literally going to create more of that. I will go down this deep, dark spiral and I will start creating more lack. And I just don't even like talking about it because it doesn't feel good in my body. I want to be in a state of expansion, of growth, where like my breath expands everything around me. And so if I'm looking for more abundance, then it might be as simple as like looking outside my window and seeing the brilliant blue sky and noticing how much blue is in the sky, or how huge and expansive and abundant the ocean appears to be, right? Like I'm putting my attention, my energy, my awareness on what is the desire, and where and how is that already in excess. And what that does is it puts my brain into the space of creating more. It puts my brain into the space of extra. It puts my brain into the space of like, oh, okay, this thing is overflowing. And I can then translate something as simple as, the sky is abundantly blue or the ocean is abundantly expansive into other aspects of my life, like cash or clients. And it's like this trickle down effect of moving abundance, the thing I desire, from one area to another. Hey, coach, are you interested in healing your relationship with money? Do you want to completely upgrade your money mindset? I have a life-changing, game-changing, transformational, audio-only program called Money Magnet, which is designed to help you heal your relationship with money, upgrade your money mindset so that you can call in more, so that you can create more money, more sales, more revenue, more abundance in your life. If you're interested in Money Magnet, we will put the link to join that program inside the show notes. It is a completely audio program and you get immediate access to the entire thing. It is set up into 20 different days. You can binge the whole thing right away if you like, or you can spend the next few weeks listening to it. This is one of my #1 best-selling programs for changing your relationship, healing your relationship with money, and I'd love to see you in there. I want to share a quick story with you. So, over the summer, we spent a lot of time at the family cottage. The family cottage is this incredible piece of, it's not, like, to call it a cottage doesn't really accurately explain what we call it. We actually call it the cabin. Okay. So let's just call it the cabin. Sometimes I'll call it a cottage because it's just easier to explain. Like, we're going to the cottage, right? But actually, we're going to the cabin. The cabin is a small log cabin that is nestled on a piece of land, a 25-acre chunk of land that my parents bought when I was 3 years old. And just to describe this place a little bit, 41 years ago, there was this small development being created on this lake in southwestern Nova Scotia. If you're familiar with Nova Scotia, it's towards Ketchimakujik, which is our national park, one of our national parks. And there's just these huge expanses of lake systems and lakes that connect with each other. And so there was a road put in, and there's a peninsula on this lake. So this spit of land that juts into this lake where they put a road. They'd sold off a bunch of lots. I don't know how many lots are there. Let's say 20, maybe more. These like small, I'll call them small. I don't know if they're half an acre or an acre lot with a road and driveways and power lines. And, you're kind of like typical cottage country where people build cottages and they have docks and they have power boats or jet skis and they mow their lawn and they probably have washing machines and showers. And I'm laughing because like that's not what the cabin is. But when whoever created this development, there was this other chunk of land that was not accessible because there was no road there. And this chunk of land, the 25 acres, which my parents subsequently bought, faces this peninsula. So we can see this, we'll call it cottage country. And obviously 41 years ago, it was less developed than it is now. But our piece of land, not accessible by road, we have a trail. So you can hike into the cabin. You can walk along this beautiful trail that goes through old growth forest. So whatever you need is on your back. Or you can canoe in, canoe or kayak, you can paddle in. And our side of the lake is actually quite rocky. So you can't really have a motorboat on our side of the lake. You can on the cottage, the cottage, we'll call it cottage country. You can where there's cottage country, where the road is, and there's deep water boat launches, and lots of people have boats over there. But because our side is rocky, no motorboats. So we can canoe from a public beach launch, which is on the cottage countryside, over to our land by canoe, which means that anything and everything that is at the cottage, at the cabin, is either been carried on someone's back or it has come across the lake. And so you can only imagine 41 years ago, my parents, and I mean, I remember this, I was 3 years old, and there are photos over the span of several summers. They bought a log cabin kit, had it delivered to the public boat launch, and they made rafts out of these logs and they towed them across the lake by canoe. They didn't have power tools, no chainsaws. Everything was done by hand. And so the cabin has really remained very unchanged over the last 41 years. My mom, after my father passed away, she did build an extension on the cabin all by herself, brought the windows in by canoe. Like, just imagine everything that goes into building a cottage or a cabin. Like, every single thing has been carried or canoed in. Like, it's really quite impressive when you think about it. And anytime we need to do maintenance, like we've replaced doors over the last few years, we've had to put in new wood stoves. All of that has come in across the lake by canoe. And so the reason I want to share this with you is I just want to paint this picture of like the vibe of the cabin. It is, you can be there and you will not see another human other than the humans that you brought in with you for days, for weeks. Like, I have very rarely seen another person. And if I do see another person when I'm down there, it's someone from the other side of the lake who's in their canoe or their kayak and they're paddling by and they've come to check out, our shore. And it's just, it's beautiful. There are bays with lily pads. The trees are huge. I mean, it hasn't been logged, and so the trees are massive. We only take the firewood that we need to, for a few visits during the winter time. It's extremely quiet. It's the most peaceful place. Like, when I go to the cabin and I leave there, my brain feels like it has been completely rewired for peace. I call it cabin brain because when you're at the cabin, nothing else matters. The other thing I should tell you is we don't get cell reception at the cabin. So the minute you walk in there, it's like everything falls away. You are not thinking about, what do I need to post? What's my message? How am I going to get clients? How do I make this business work? You're not thinking about soccer games and driver's tests for your teenagers. You legitimately can't check your email on your phone. You definitely can't get on Instagram. If you stand on a certain rock, on a certain ridge, in a certain location, you can get a text out. You can't really get phone calls. Voxer doesn't work either. And so when I say nothing else matters, it's like your thoughts during the day at the cabin are things like, well, what are we going to eat? Which is, I love planning for the cabin because I love planning meals, and I'm an amazing food packer, by the way. But you're thinking about, how many turtles am I going to see today? How many fish are we going to catch? What rock will we canoe to? Where will we go swimming? I mean, we have 25 acres of essentially like lakefront land. And so there are all kinds of different rocks that we can jump off of. There are different like swimming holes. And it's so magical there. And all the regular stuff that we worry about in day-to-day life, like, it actually just doesn't even exist at the cabin. And so when I'm there, I'm in this space of like noticing the abundance of nature and noticing how loud the birds are. So you've got the picture of the cabin, right? Now I want to get to my story. So we were at the cabin recently, myself, my husband, the kids, and John and I were both sitting on the dock. And when I say dock, it's like a small wooden platform, okay, on the lake, overlooking the lake. And we can, like I said, we can see the other cottages on the other side of the lake. And I'm sitting there, I'm lying down and I'm looking up at the trees. And the trees have this like canopy over the dock, so they provide shade. and I'm hearing the birds and I'm listening to the birds. And all I can think about is the sound of the forest has completely swept me away. It's like a symphony. It wasn't even just the birds that were singing that day. The wind was playing in the leaves of the trees, and just that like rustling of the summer leaves was creating like this, almost like this whooshing in my brain. And when I say it was like a symphony or an orchestra, like that's really what it sounded like. And I was just noticing the beauty of it, and how potent those sounds are. And my husband, who's on the exact same dock as me, who's a foot away from me, sitting in a chair also, he looks over to me and he says, "Oh my God, that's so annoying." And I looked over at him, and I thought he meant the birds. He was reading his book. And I was like, "What?" And he's like, "The boats on the other side of the lake, they're so annoying." So we're in the exact same place. We're in the exact same environment, right? I'm focused on the birds. I don't even hear the boats on the other side of the lake. It wasn't until he drew my attention to it that I stopped listening to the birds and I started to tune into the boats on the other side of the lake. And I remember, and I said to him, I was like, "I didn't even notice. I'm busy listening to the birds." Like, I could hear them when he drew my attention to it, but I thought it was so fascinating and so interesting that you can be in the exact same place, yes, exact same environment as someone, and you are both noticing very different things. And I see this with clients. I see this with two people who have just sold a coaching package. One of them is going to celebrate that they sold a coaching package, and they're going to be so excited, and they're going to think about how they created that package. And then they're going to go create more of those packages, and they're going to sell more of those packages because they're in this energy of more and abundance. Another person might have the exact same experience and sell one coaching package. And then they're going to focus that they only, air quotes, sold one package. And they're going to think about all the people who didn't buy. I mean, can you relate? Like, if you're a coach or a consultant or a service provider and you're listening to this, like, I want you to think about and just be like real and honest with yourself. How many times do you focus on who's not buying? Or the other thing I hear a lot of is like people will say, "Oh, I want to create this high ticket package," or, I want to create this group program, but my audience can't afford it, or my audience won't buy that. My people won't buy that. So they're literally pigeonholing themselves, like putting themselves in this box and saying they aren't going to buy it, therefore I'm not going to put it together, instead of thinking about, okay, fine, my audience is not going to buy it. Like, they're not my ideal fit clients. If they're not going to buy the very things I'm creating, then they're not your ideal clients, people. You then need to focus on creating a new audience and new clients and new customers for the packages you actually want to sell. I'm going to share another story here with you because this is super relevant. Over this summer, I did a bunch of different sales. And so we pre planned out my summer emails, July, August, September, and we planned out all my summer sales. A couple of them, to be honest, were flops. They didn't, I don't like saying something didn't work, but they didn't have the expected outcome that I hoped they would have. And I remember waking up one morning during the summer and I was like, okay, I could focus on why this didn't work, why people didn't buy this. I could really, like, I could go down a deep, dark rabbit hole with this one and get very stuck there. And then I would think about lack of money, and I would get stressed and I would get anxious. And oh, even just talking about that, like, it puts this like twisty feeling in my stomach. And I'm like, no, that does not feel good at all. And so lying there in bed, I was like, yeah, I mean, I could go down this deep, dark rabbit hole, or I could really tune in to what else I could create and what else there is for me to offer and sell. And I started to think about ideal clients, and I have a lot of my ideal clients in my actual orbit. So when I think about an ideal client, I'm thinking about a real and true human. And I started to think about them. And I'm like, okay, fine. They're not buying that thing that I thought they were going to buy, that I wanted them to buy. They're not buying that. Okay, fine. So what is it that they might want? And I just decided, like, middle of the summer, I'm actually on vacation, to go on Instagram that day. And I put a few slides together, promoting my fall mastermind. And two people messaged me and they're like, I'm interested. Tell me more. That summer day, I ended up making $10,000. $10,000 in a day because I didn't go down this deep, dark rabbit hole of why isn't this working? No one's buying. I suck. They suck. Everyone sucks. I acknowledged it. I acknowledged my feelings and my disappointment, right? Like I let myself have the feeling. So this is, hear me, that this is not about bypassing your feelings. This is not about shutting down something that feels real and true for you, but it is about not staying there. It's about not staying stuck with something. And so we process that emotion, we allow that to move through the body, we acknowledge it, we feel it somatically, we let it move through. And then we it's like refocus. Like, okay, get back on path, get back on track. What is it that you desire? Who are your ideal clients? What do you want to sell? How much money do you want to make? Get your eyes on the prize. Get your eyes back on the very thing that you want to create and go from there. And that's exactly what I did that day. I was like, who do I want to work with? What do I want to sell? What do I love selling? What do I love delivering? What serves my clients? Right? Like getting out of this, Debbie Downer place and back into, I'm an empowered business leader. I'm a coach and I have a skill that can serve a lot of people. Okay, great. Let me go on Instagram. Maybe for you, it's sending an email or picking up the phone or sending some personalized messages. I don't know. But getting back in your power such that you are in a positive sales mode. And what this did for me that day was completely turn around. Like, it doesn't matter that that thing didn't sell. I made $10,000, right? Like, from turning my attention and my focus on to movement, onto growth, onto expansion. And, on that note, it's like people are so busy. I see this. People are so busy looking at what other people are doing that they're like, oh, I should do it like him or her or them, instead of just being like, no, what the F do I want to do? How do I want to show up? What do I want to sell? Who do I want to sell to? Like, get in your lane, get in your zone, be in your genius. I say, own your brilliance. Like, get back in your power and sell the thing that you want to sell. Focus on where you're going, focus on who's coming with you. Don't focus on who's not coming. Don't focus on who's not buying. Don't talk about who, I mean, sure, talk about who your not ideal clients are, but don't talk about them as like, you need to create something for them. Like, I have this one client who, she continues to sell her offers to clients that she really doesn't like serving. And guess what? She's burnt out. She's exhausted. She's resentful. And what's actually happening is her sales are starting to suffer. And it's this like negative spiral. And if all this person would do is think about her vision, think about what lights her up. Your clients should expand you as much as you expand them. Like, when I get off a call with my amazing clients who are in my it's like a membership kind of mastermind, my group coaching program, the collective. When I get off calls with those women, I am so lit up. I am so inspired by them. And I think we tend to think of that, a coach's job is to hold the space and hold the energy and hold space for transformation. And yes, you absolutely are. That is your role. That is your job. But also, if your clients are sucking the life out of you, and if you get off every call feeling like heavy and weighted, those are not your ideal clients. Your ideal clients should be feeding you as much as you feed them, as much as you support them. And I mean, it's obviously a different energy. They're not holding space for your transformation, but there should be this is synergy the right word? It's like these two things should really go together. And so, one of the ways that you can do this is to really get clear and focused on where you're going. You don't need to ruminate in what's not working and why you're stuck, or what you don't want. And again, yes, do those things like to as reflection exercises, but then move out of that and get back into your power of movement forward, of growth, of expansion, of like, I'm here to play this game, I'm here to do this work, I'm here to be of service to the world, and this is what that looks like. I promise you, if all you did was shift your focus from what's not working to what is working, or from what you don't desire to where you do desire, like if that's all you take away from today, I mean, that's huge. Your life will actually change. Your life will legitimately change if you do this consistently. Okay. Thank you so much for tuning into today's episode. I hope you loved listening to it as much as I loved recording this for you. If you like this episode, please send me a message on Instagram. I'm Beck_Keen. And you can also share it in your stories, tag me, send it to a friend. And also, the very best thing you could do if you love this episode is go onto Apple or Spotify podcasts and leave me a written review, because that really, really helps. Thank you so, so much. And I will see you in the next episode.